Welcome back. Today we are going to look at what is charisma and what does it mean to you and me. We have seen lots of people who are absolutely effortless, polished, and walking around who make us feel like piece of, I don't know how to say it, and make us wonder what are we doing on this earth. But you know what? I will argue that charisma doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, I will say that charisma is equal to being imperfect. I know we have been told over and over again that charisma is being perfect, charisma is being super smooth, charisma is being absolutely right in every single situation. But it is not that way. My truth bomb that I'm going to drop now is this: charisma is actually embracing imperfection. Charisma is embracing what people call as vulnerability. Let's talk about that. Well, what you see are the perfect, magnetic, flawless, smooth operators that we have been taught to idolize. And that's exactly what I'm going to argue that we don't have to be. In fact, given the world that we are living in, again and again and again, and with lot more frequently, the only people that we can relate to are the people like us. And the smooth, suave, perfect magnetic operators are not the people that we can relate to. If you can't even relate to a person, if you can't even think about you can be that person, how can that person have any value for you? That's going to be my core argument for today's episode. So, what does it mean for you and me? Vulnerability is all about being relatable. Vulnerability is all about being the imperfect people that we are. And vulnerability is all about embracing that imperfection, saying that we don't have to be smooth all the time. We can't be smooth all the time. We can't be suave all the time. We can't be perfect all the time. And it's absolutely okay being who you are. And once you accept that, once you talk and are comfortable talking about your flaws openly, that is when people relate to. And that is when true relationships are born. Not when you are this perfect person on the earth. That is not when things happen. But things happen when you are saying to yourself and to others that I'm imperfect and that's absolutely okay. You and I and everybody else is an imperfect form on this earth. And we have been living like this for a long time. And we don't have to hide our imperfections. We don't have to walk on it as if we are perfect people because we all know that we are not. We have our flaws. And we have all heard that saying to err is human. And to forgive is divine, yes, but to err is human is the most important part of that sentence. That when we err, and to accept that errors are part of us, imperfections are part of us, we are a lot more relatable. And when we are a lot more relatable, actually, that is the moment when charisma is actually on. Just to quote Bryn Brown's very famous saying from her book on vulnerability, here I go. She says, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. And we are what we are. We have to face what we need to face. And when we are ready to do that, with all the flaws that we have, and without ever trying to hide those flaws, being just who you are, that is where you're truly vulnerable. And that is where true starting point of charisma happens. Vulnerability sounds crazy because a lot of times we're worried about what people will think of us. What will they think? It said that public speaking is the most important fear number one, even bigger than the fear of death. Why is that fear? Because people are scared to death that what will people think of me if I forget my lines? What will people think of me if I can't deliver on stage? What will people think of me if I stutter? All that questions go into their mind and they don't even try, which they might have won and they might have performed very well in when it comes to public speaking. And the same thing holds good for presentations, even small presentations. People are really afraid of going out there and delivering it simply because they are too worried about what people will think of them. But here is the truth: people don't care anything about others. People are too worried about themselves. And even if you stumble, even if you don't perform as well as you think you should have, people don't really worry about it. People don't really think about it. People don't really remember all of those details the next minute. All that matters is that you show up. All that matters is that you show up just exactly like who you are with all your flaws and start relating to people. Let's look at an example. Suppose you are in a party, suppose you're in a meeting, and somebody catches you during the lunchtime and tells you how they messed up, royally messed up during a presentation, and how their boss almost came to firing them, and they have a laugh at themselves. How would it make you feel about them? You actually feel good about them. You say that, oh, this person is able to laugh at himself. How good he is. I wish I can have that ability. Now, you are admiring the ability of somebody's ability to laugh at themselves, somebody to mock at themselves, somebody to say that, oh, I have these flaws and I'm not even going to hide. You know what? I'm going to talk about that. That is vulnerability, and that is what makes people so very relatable. And when you become relatable, people start actually liking you. So when somebody says that they've been through a lot of these and somebody has the ability to laugh at themselves, somebody doesn't want to hide and actually is able to talk about their flaws, their failures, their issues, all about that without having any need for hiding, that is when you actually start wondering, oh, this person has gone through the same mess that I am going through, because everybody goes through the same mess. Everybody has the same flaws. Everybody has the same urge to, oh, can I hide it? Can I not show it? What will people think of me? All of have same the same fears. When you see the person, another person not having that same fear, you start wondering, oh, this is a better way to live. This is a better way to showcase oneself. This is a better way to talk about oneself without the need of hiding, without the need of coming across as perfect and polished operator that one needs to showcase oneself as. And just being oneself with all the flaws that one has is also a way of operating, is in fact a better way of operating. You realize that, and when a person showcases that, you start admiring that person. Let's take it some examples. Let's take Superman. Superman is invincible. You can't destroy that person. That person has every single power that one can imagine. And you may want to see that person on screen once, maybe twice. But what is there to relate to that person? That person is, of course, will win. That person will, of course, destroy all the enemies. And that is why the Superman character, while it was interesting for a while, lost all the interest from the public because there is no flaw in that character. There is nothing in that character that you want to relate to, that thing in the character that you want to learn from. And that is why Superman could not be a great character. While the other characters, whichever character that you can think of in the Marvel Comics world, were very, very good characters. Whether you take Spider Man with all his flaws, whether you took other characters with all their individual flaws, while they had superpowers, all of them had their own flaws as well. When somebody has a flaw, it makes you relate to them. When somebody is absolutely polished and smooth, you know you can't be like them, and therefore there is no starting point of relatability. Even in Hindu culture and Hindu ethos, you talk about gods, and when the gods came to earth, they had their flaws. Ram came as a man and he lived as a man with all the flaws of a man. He cried when he lost his wife. He cried when he had to find his wife and he could not find a way to find that. And he laughed with people, he cried with people. So when only when you see a person like yourself, that you start believing that, okay, that person is like me, that person has the same flaws, that person, in spite of the same flaws as me, is able to transcend those flaws. So if that person can do it, I can also do it. That is the starting point of relatability, and the relatability is the starting point of charisma. And without that person displaying the vulnerability of not hiding the flaws, not being too smooth, not being too polished, you will not even be able to relate to that person, whether it is a Superman or Lord Ram. So here is a deal. Just be who you are. That brings a ton of authenticity to what you are. And when you are authentic, when you are just being yourself, accepting your flaws, of course, you are trying to improve on your flaws. Of course, you are trying to improve a person that you are. If you have a short temper, you don't want to live with that short temper forever. You try to improve on that, but you accept that you are that person with that short temper. You don't try to hide that. Of course, you are who you are. If you're a person who misses schedules, who forgets faces, who forgets names, that's what you are. There's no point pretending to be otherwise. There's no point pretending to be a polished, more polished person than who you are. And that authentic being brings a lot of great charisma with great leaders realize, and therefore they are what they are. They don't try to project a more polished phase of themselves. And all of us are leaders at whatever levels that we are. If you're a manager in a company and if you are managing a couple of people, then you are a leader in your own right. And your team will start respecting you when you are authentic self. Being authentic self is not being saying that I am short temper and therefore I will shout. No, it is to say that yes, I have my flaws, but I'm going to improve to whatever extent I can, and I accept my flaws. And in spite of my flaws, I'm going to be doing my damnest best to do the best for the team. And it's not trying to hide the flaws, it's to improve publicly in spite of the flaws. So when you start doing that, relatability goes up, your charisma quotient goes up. And I'm going to share 3 ways of improving that. And you can find the links for all of these tracking sheets in the YouTube just below the comment. And I'm sure it will be very, very useful to you. Here I go. Number 1, it's all about vulnerability journaling. I'm going to share a sheet which helps you to journal all about your vulnerability. What did you learn from your different experiences? Take 10, 15 minutes and just write down whenever you felt vulnerable. You felt, oh, I should hide it. It could be a speaking moment. It could be a presentation moment. It could be a moment where you lost your temper and you had to apologize later. It could be any moment where you had to be yourself without trying to hide it. And there were plenty of things to hide it. So, what were those moments? When did you feel very, very vulnerable? And what happened to you during that moment? That's what you should journal about. When you journal about things, it reinforces your learning, makes you a lot more self aware than you have ever been. And that is what this sheet, which is given in the comment below, the link, which would help you. So, what did you learn from that experience? And how did it help you to connect with others? And what would you do differently now that you have this learning and now that you have this understanding about the power of vulnerability? Journal it, reflect it. You don't have to do it every single day, but you have to do it at least once a week. Think about the weekly, whatever has happened during the week. Collect your thoughts, put down, journal it down, learn from it. It's an absolutely wonderful way of recollecting what has happened to you and also reinforcing that charisma is not all about being polished. It's exactly opposite. It's just being what you are, and in spite of whoever you are, in spite of whatever you are blessed with, improving every single day on what gifts you have been given. The second one that you need to do, which again I have given the link for it, is what I call as share your imperfection challenge. It goes like this: encourage yourself to record a 30-second video and share a post on social media if you're comfortable with that. And that is getting comfortable with yourself, getting comfortable with what you are not yet comfortable is all about crossing that imaginary line which separates people who are not courageous versus people who get courageous and get going. So I would really like you to transcend that line, transcend that border, and get on to being really courageous. But here is what you should do. You can share with your friends and or a private group on it could be a funny story. It could be a awkward moment. It could be a moment where you really, really messed up, an important moment that you completely missed and messed up. Talk about that moment. Talk about how you felt. Talk about what impact it had on others. Talk about now that moment is behind you. What is your learning from that moment? During that moment, it feels very, very bad and as if the earth has shattered and fell on you. But after some time, it feels okay. I mean, everybody messes up, so did I. And these are my learnings from that messing up moment. That's what you come to a point of, and therefore you are able to laugh at it. You are able to draw lessons from it without being feeling awkward about it now. So, shoot a film about yourself. It could be a 30 seconds, 60 seconds film. Share it with your friends, share it with on the social media if you have the courage. And I would really encourage you to have that courage and to transcend that border. But three that I would really, really ask you to urge you to do is what I call as an imperfection gratitude list. For example, put down 5 things about yourself where you thought it were initially flaws or weaknesses, but they are human. For example, something that you are not always organized, but that allows you to be flexible and creative. Being extremely organized actually cuts down on creativity. That is something that people have found. And therefore, everything has an other side. Everything is a coin, and there are two sides to it. One side looks like a shiny side, but it is not. Every side has its own pros and cons. But taking this example, if you're not very organized, therefore what? What has it actually benefited you? Think about that. And therefore, it would be a funny moment. It would be a gratitude list towards your imperfections and flaws. When you think about this, when you put down this list, when you write down this list, you will start learning about yourself. You will start understanding yourself and your flaws. And more importantly, you would start to accept yourself and live with yourself. A lot of times, it's very, very difficult for us to accept ourselves as who we are. We want to be more perfect. We want to be more polished. We want to be more suave. We want to be somebody who we are not. And while we need to improve ourselves, there are some core characteristics that we are born with. There are core characteristics which define who we are. And when we lose that, we are not who we are. And it's very sad moment to lose that. Sometimes we forget who we are. And this gratitude towards those imperfection list would help you to retouch, go connect with that core of who you are. And that finding out that core would be a fantastic moment for you. See you in our next episode.